Good morning and welcome back. Happy Tuesday again. I hope you have had an excellent week of learning and you're ready for more. Let's get started. Last week we discussed analyzing text. We are going to continue that standard and go a little bit deeper and focus on something a little bit different. Our objective today is to analyze how a particular sentence or stanza contributes to the overall structure of text. Last week, we focused on the same thing, but we looked at how a sentence or a paragraph focus on the structure of the text. We also talked about how text structure contributes to the development of text meaning. We discussed that when we talked about the text structure of text contributes to the overall meaning of the text by organizing the way that ideas are developed. We also discussed that authors use this to break their text into sentences, paragraphs, chapters, as well as stanzas. Authors also use text structure to organize information in a meaningful way. Now, last week, we discussed how sentences and paragraphs connect to benefit this text structure so that it helps with the development of us understanding maybe the theme or the setting, even the plot. We also discussed that text structures had different types. One was chronological order, cause and effect, problem and solution, and compare and contrasting. Chronological order, when the passage is written in the order of how the events happened or how they will happen. The second one, cause and effect, is when a passage shows how one thing happens, which is the cause, and it leads to something else happening, which is the effect. Now, for problem and solution, our third type of text structure, we discussed that this is when something goes wrong, and then something that wrong, the problem, the conflict is solved. We also compare this to plot because plot has a beginning, middle, and an end. The whole reason for the plot of a story is the conflict, which is the problem, and this is solved at the end of the story. Our last text structure that we discussed last week was comparing and contrasting, meaning it is written to compare events, ideas, things, as well as people. Now, let's get into our text today. Have you ever read song lyrics or a poem? If so, then you've read a stanza. Now, what is a stanza, you ask? A stanza is a group of lines. Those lines are formed and they're put together to form this stanza. It's very similar to a paragraph. But in paragraphs, we have actual, sentences. Those sentences are formed or put together to form that paragraph. Now, lines are similar to that sentence. Last week, we discussed how sentences connect to form that paragraph and how authors use those sentences as well as the paragraphs to connect the text for a meaning. This shows the text structure. Now, today, we're going to focus on how lines and stanzas develop the text structure. One last thing we want to discuss is a theme. We just want to recall what a theme is. What is a theme, you ask? Theme is a message or a lesson. It's something that you're supposed to learn. What are you getting out of this text? What does the author want you to get from it? Have you ever had a dream? Think about your dream. Is it to graduate high school? Is it to become famous? Do you want to be president? Do you want to simply own your own company? What do you want? Take a few seconds and think about your dream. Good. Now, what if that dream was put on hold? How would you feel if someone stopped your dream or if you had to stop your dream yourself? Well, let's think about that. We're going to get into a poem today called Harlem. A Dream Deferred by Langston Hughes. Now, as you can imagine, it's about what? Probably dreams. Let's find out. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? Or does it fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat? Or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load, or does it explode? Very interesting poem here. Let's break down this text for a deeper understanding. The first stanza is the first line. Stanzas can be made up of many different lines. It could be 1 line, 2 lines, 3 lines, 4 lines, and so forth. Now, the first stanza, what happens to a dream deferred? Well, what does it mean for something to be deferred? Well, it means that it's being postponed, delayed, or put on hold. So as we discussed in the beginning, when we talk about your dreams, how would you feel if your dream was deferred or put on hold? The second stanza. Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? Or does it fester like a sore and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat? Or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet, sorry. Stanza 2. What could possibly happen to a dream deferred? Well, line 1 says it dries up like a raisin in the sun. Well, that will look kind of old and withered. Line 2. Does it fester like a sore and then run? Well, a sore festers. Let's say if you had a cold sore on your lip. It festers, it kind of annoys you, gets on your nerves, and then it just disappears. The third one says stink like rotten meat. Well, that's pretty bad. If my dream stunk like rotten meat, I don't think I want that dream. That's a pretty bad dream. Or does it crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? Well, that would be awesome because we all like sweets, even though we probably can't have them all the time. Stanza 3. What could possibly happen to this dream being deferred? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load. Now, to understand that line, a heavy load is a big deal. A heavy load is when you are carrying burdens and you can't carry anything else. It's heavy. You ever had to help mom with groceries? It's heavy, all right, if you carry more than one. Look how his bike, his little cycle, is being weighed down. Look at the truck. The back of the truck is declining. It's almost dragging the ground because that load is so heavy. Now, stanza 4, very last stanza. Or does it explode? Oh my God, exploding. If my dream exploded, I would like to think that maybe it disappeared. It's over. It's done. It's over with. I can't have this dream. Exploding is a big deal. It's combusting. It's a ball of fire. It is over. Now, if we broke down every single stanza, line 1, the opening stanza, asks a question. Stanza 2 has more concrete comparisons with questions. So there's something similar here. We're still asking, we're asking questions. Now, stanza 3 is a much sadder line. It has more abstract comparison versus concrete comparisons in the second stanza. It makes a complete statement. Notice there's a period, not a question mark. Now, stanza 4, our final comparison to destruction, he asks another question. But this leaves the reader to want to ask more questions. Does it explode? Where at this point, if you have dreams and you're confused about what you really want to do, you have questions about your dream. You're not sure if that dream is going to last or will it make it, or even if you're going to become what you think you want to become. Gives you a lot to think about. Now, if we're focusing on stanza 2 through 4, that's this section all the way down, everything that Langston Hughes wrote, he tried to answer the question to the very first line. Now, we can definitely say that everything in this poem connected. And it connected to fit the overall structure of the text. It led us to a theme. So how do we examine this poem structure? Well, the first thing we did, we read the poem in its entirety. We went back and we read again. We read each stanza by itself and determined the purpose of that stanza, how it connected to the one before it as well as after it. We noticed how each stanza built on the previous stanza. So it was more information being added. Same as last week we talked about analyzing text structures, but we focused on sentences and paragraphs. This week we're building on that same skill, but we're breaking it down for a deeper understanding for something a little different. Last but not least, we created a theory that explained why the stanzas were broken up in a way that they were. I believe that Langston Hughes did an awesome job. How about you? Now, we're going to look at our own poem. We're going to break this text down, and we're going to analyze this particular poem in the same way. We're going to do something a little bit differently, but we're still focused on analyzing this text for the overall structure for the development of the text. This one is called Summer Night by Bianca Capiletta. The city is full of street lights, stoplights, floodlights, making it hard to see the stars. But Ben and Louie are out this summer night at 10 p.m. in front of their apartment building, peering up at the sky anyway. Ben asks if that's the constellation Orion hovering over there just above that billboard. Louis shrugs because he doesn't know for sure. He asks, how many light years to the edge of the universe? And what's beyond the edge when you get there? If you could get there, which you probably can't, but if you could, Ben says he doesn't know for sure either. It's a vast place, the universe. But what's beyond it must be vaster still. And they know they should go inside and get ready for bed, but it's too wonderful out here below the faint glow of the stars, and they just can't. Now, let's talk about this text. This is a poem, but yet, you're correct. It tells a story. It does. So we could say that this type of text structure is chronological order. It's telling the events that happen throughout. Very good. Now, let's focus on a couple of words. Hovering. Well, what does it mean to hover? Well, it means to kind of linger over something and just stay in that place. The second term we want to focus on is vaster. Yeah, you're correct. Well, the base word is vast, and we saw that earlier here. He stated that it's a vast place. And yes, that means something large. So we're understanding that for it to be vaster still, the universe is just huge. It is humongous. For them to use the word vast, they're really elaborating on how large, how huge, how big it is. Yeah. Now, one thing, let's focus on the picture. You have two little boys sitting here, and they're viewing that night sky with the stars. But they can't go in. They're mesmerized. They want to stay. They just cannot look away. They don't want to leave. Let's think for a second. What are Ben and Louie doing here? Well, yeah, they're sitting outside looking up at the night sky and those stars. Very good. What are they thinking about as they're looking up at that sky? Well, they did talk about the universe. They're thinking about the edge of the universe, how far it goes. What was the word they used? Vast, you're correct. And they're also thinking about how big it is. Yeah. Why can't Ben and Louie go inside and get ready for bed? Well, nothing's stopping them. No one's holding them hostage. There's no one else outside. It is definitely time for bed. So why can't they leave? You are correct. I believe Ben stated that it was just too wonderful, meaning just awesome. They could not take their eyes off of it. It was amazing. It was too wonderful for them to leave. They couldn't go. Now let's go a little bit deeper. Let's use what we've learned. What is the theme of the poem Summer Night? Now, that's a pretty deep question. We got to focus. Well, first thing we have to recall is theme. Now, we're going to complete a nice open-ended response. And in order to do that, we need to focus on the RACE strategy. Well, R stands for restating the question. A, answer the question. C, cite evidence. And then E, explain everything that you've stated. So let's look at a few notes. Theme, yes, it is a message. It is something that we learn. It is a lesson in the text. We also need to review main idea. Main idea goes hand in hand with theme. So we discussed main idea a lot last week. Let's recap. Main idea is what the story is mostly about. This connects to the theme. Now, our notes from the text, we know that they discussed the universe. We know that they talked about the universe's edge, the edge of the universe. We also know that they talked about how vast it was. So when they talked about the universe's edge, an edge is something like the end of something. But they talked about how vast it was, so technically doesn't really end. It's huge, and it goes on and on and on. They also talked about the fact that it was too wonderful to leave. They didn't want to stop looking at it. They didn't want it to end. Now, this is a sample of text that has already been put together, of course. You've helped me with our notes. We've put the text together. So let's focus on race again. Remember, restate the question, answer the question, cite textual evidence, and then explain everything that you stated. The theme of the poem, Summer Night, is that the universe is wonderful and limitless. Well, they stated that it was wonderful. It's limitless because that universe's edge is vast and it goes on and on. In line 9, this is your textual evidence. Louis asks, what is beyond the edge of the universe? Ben replies by stating he doesn't know because the universe is a vast place. It's too big to even think about. And what's beyond it must be vaster still. This shows how limitless the universe is, by elaborating on how large it is. In line 13 of the text, Ben states that they should go inside, but they just can't. Because the glow of the stars outside is too wonderful. This statement explains how the boys are so mesmerized by the beautiful sky, they just can't leave or stop looking. Now, guys, you've done an awesome job today. I am so proud of you. I know that you're going to do your best. You know everything about analyzing the text, from sentences to chapters to stanzas, even lines now. And let's not forget paragraphs. You know everything you need to know. Next week, you got to tune in. We're going to learn something new, and we're going to practice comparing and contrasting text. Now, I know you can do that. If you just even think about everything we've done today and last week, you can compare all of that. You can compare a paragraph to a stanza. Yes, and a line to a sentence. You're awesome. Please be safe. Make sure you're washing your hands. You're obeying your parents. You are studying. And, of course, you are tuning in. Have fun. I'll see you next week. Goodbye.